It's time for, hello, a Jersey Shore recap podcast.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, yes. It is me, Cookie.
And I'm GWOW. Together we are Cookie and GWOW. And we recap Jersey Shore. We're in season 4, episode 5. And the episode is called And the Wall Won.
Oh my God. You know what? Those little editors or producers, they thought they were real funny for that one, didn't they? That's
I'm pretty
shady.
sure I left off our last episode saying we'll see who wins, Mike versus the Wall. And they answered the question before the episode even starts. The Wall wins. So
Before we start really recapping it, I do just want to address that this episode is probably one of the darkest of the whole series.
yeah.
And it's pretty infamous. A lot of what happens in this episode was very controversial at the time, and it made headlines and it caused a lot of discussion about the show. So
Yeah.
and deservedly so. I mean, we're gonna get into it, but it's pretty dark. So I guess we'll jump in.
It's dark from like start to finish.
Right.
In the beginning, we come back on the big fight. You know, Mike is screaming, "I'm not involved in your relationship," and because the roommates are so used to Ron and Sam fighting, if they had just heard Ron and Sam, they weren't even gonna go get involved. But once they heard Mike, everyone kind of comes in, and it's like they're all peeking through the door. Mike screaming, and they kind of showed us the order of events originally, like out of order. Like when we finished off last episode, we saw Ron and Mike like entangled in a fight. But in the order of events from the beginning of this episode, Mike's screaming, and the first thing he does is he throws his bed frame and then he bashes his head against the wall. And he even kind of falls over, and there's like a lull in the fight, which we'll dissect all of this for sure. But just then the footage that we've already seen of Ron and Sam, of Ron and Mike fighting is actually round 2. So like he bashes his head against the wall, which we've so much to talk about on just that like collision. But he is on the ground. Jenny's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" He gets up for round 2, and that's when him and Ron start fighting, and security is like actually having it looks like a hard time pulling them apart and keeping them off of each other. And that's after he's bashed his head on fucking concrete.
Right.
And I don't know where security was lurking or why it takes them so long, but when I see them pulling each other off, I'm like, fucking finally.
Right. Well, let's sort of start from the very beginning, because before the head bashing incident, Ron and Mike are screaming at each other, and I used the word primitive last week to describe the anger that these two have, and I kind of stand by that. It's really animalistic and scary because they're both like spitting, they're like saliva's flying out of their mouth because they're just yelling so ferociously. And I think it really kind of has shaken everybody up. Everybody looks terrified. The girls are crying. Even the other guys, like even Polly and Vinny, kind of don't know what to do. They're just sort of standing there like awkwardly, because when people are that angry, on one hand, you want to separate them and keep them away from each other. But on the other hand, it's like, do I want collateral damage? That's when people are that angry, they don't care if you were directly involved or not. If you get in the way, you're getting hit too. So I think I would kind of be, if I was there, I'd be scared, cowering in the corner.
Yeah, I think I'd be upset the way the girls are. Like it's just a lot of energy that's so negative. And when Mike's doing that like like primal scream, and he's throwing things, and he decides to bash his head in the wall, he reveals later in the episode that he didn't realize the wall was concrete. He thought he was gonna like make a dent in like, you know, an American drywall kind of a wall. But it's an interesting move in a fight to be like, I'm gonna make myself look so crazy that it won't escalate, I guess was his thought process. But it's not like a light, hit my head on the wall. Like, he really threw himself at this wall.
Right. Well, because like you said, he was sort of, this is a move. He also revealed later in the episode, this is a move that he has pulled previously and it was successful. Like he was fighting a guy that was like double his size and he
Mhm.
did this and it sort of did help him. So it was a move he's done before. And I'm assuming in America with drywall, with like sheet, America's not known for its durable buildings.
Yeah.
So I think his intention was for his head to go all the way through the wall, like to make a big hole. So he, like you said, he really went for it, and he hits the wall and almost immediately collapses. And the fight does sort of pause. Everybody gets quiet, and they're kind of figuring out like, did he just knock himself out? But then this weird thing happens where he sort of like instantly becomes conscious again.
Yeah,
And
he
he
gets
like
like an
rises from
adrenaline rush of round
right,
2. It's weird.
because he almost looks like he's out for a second, not quite, like his eyes are open, but then he just immediately wakes up and he like rises from the dead and jumps up, and the fight just resumes.
I really appreciate Jenny in this whole saga because she's really trying to de-escalate and make sure people are getting like fucking medical attention if they need it. And it doesn't work, but she's really the only like voice of reason. They keep screaming at each other, everybody, because I think Ron and Sam then start screaming at each other again. I don't know where Mike went at this point, but it's important because Ron and Sam are like screaming at each other, and Jenny's begging Sam to leave him alone. Like, please just walk away. And Sam can't. And Ron is even like, leave me the fuck alone. And then he says the words that he knows are going to get a reaction out of her. And he says, whatever, fine. I'll tell you, I've been calling other girls the whole time we've been here. And Sam kind of takes a step back and is like, is that true? And he's like, yeah, now will you walk away? And what a weird move, but then she does finally walk away, and there's still this like era of chaos in the house, but at least people are separated and in our different rooms for a moment. And that's when I think people are starting to realize, like, should we like check on Mike? Like, is he like okay?
Yeah, well, it was kind of the double whammy because he did the head thing, but they also did fight. Like production let it happen for a longer than they usually would on a show like this. And they kind of got out of it. Like Ron was bleeding a little bit, and Mike, his sweater was almost torn off his body. And so it was brutal. And Nicole goes over and tells him he needs to go to the hospital. And at first he
Yeah.
kind of refuses because I don't think he wants to look like weak, like he lost the fight. But they kind of go against his will and they just call the ambulance for him. And it's just this dramatic scene of them rolling him out in a gurney. And it was just a very chaotic, scary scene.
Yeah, and Mike in his book talks about how he had smuggled drugs to Italy. He didn't plan for as much as he would need, and he at this point was kind of like running low, was going to need some more. And so I wonder if how much I wonder, like, I obviously he hurt himself, like there's no question, and he had a concussion and all the stuff, but like I also wonder if he's trying to be like, no, I'm fine, so that it's less obvious that he does want to go to the hospital and get drugs, because they do prescribe him painkillers, and it's nothing even remotely close to what he's been taking, but it's enough to get him through without withdrawing, like fully on camera. And so it's hard to know like where the truth is, where the line is of like editing and all that, and like where did the girls really push for him to go to the hospital, and how much did he want to go to the hospital, because his drug addiction is like a subplot that we don't know about while we're watching, but like we know about post him talking about it in like his book and all that.
Yeah, no, you might be right because he didn't really protest much. He might have been torn because I'm sure he did have pride of not wanting to look like he lost, but also seeing it as an opportunity. So I can't imagine his head was in the right place. But
Right.
ultimately, and we'll talk about it more later because later in the episode we sort of get the diagnosis, but it ultimately is a good thing that he went. But he's off in the ambulance, and the roommates are kind of left a little bit stunned. Like even Ron starts to sort of come down pretty quickly. I think the ambulance sort of shook everybody into reality.
Yeah,
I
everyone's freaked out.
think we should take a break before we discuss what happens after Mike leaves in the ambulance. But the
Yeah.
one thing I want to say, and we've talked about this before, watching a scene like this, it's hard not to think about production and the role they play in all of it, because
Mhm.
on one hand, you want that fly on the wall experience. You want to see truth. If production meddles too much, then it's not real, because in real life, when people fight, they fight. Like, so on one hand, you want to see what happens, but on the other hand, it's hard not to think about the fact that there's a crew of producers and camera people and microphone operators, and I mean, there's probably dozens of people in that house sort of watching this happens. And I mean, is it irresponsible for them to let it go as far as it did? Like, especially after Mike bashed his head in the wall and almost went unconscious for a second.
Yeah, and
To
these aren't
then,
people who have access to like calling 911 or the
right.
cops if something happens. Like they're completely at the mercy of these producers.
Yeah. And I just think, like, after seeing what Mike did and seeing him almost unconscious for a second, and then they still let him, roll around with Ron, I feel
Yeah.
like that was over a line a little bit. So
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, who am I to say? But maybe to a degree you sign up for that when you do a reality show, but I don't know. Something to
I
think
don't
about.
know. I don't know. I think you're right, though. We should take a little break before we get more into this heavy episode.
Okay. Can't get enough of hello?
Never.
Well, check us out on social media. We're on Instagram and TikTok at hello pod.
And if you are listening to us, but you'd rather be watching, you can go to patreon.com/hello. There's also going to be tons of bonus content, including bonus episodes and behind the scenes, like how I got my Snooki pove.
And last but not least, if you're a brand or you just want to give us money, send us an email, a professional email at hellopod@gmail.com.
All right, let's get back to the show already.
Okay.
Hello.
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 We're back.
We are back. Everyone is crying. And this is where this feels like the heaviest moment of the episode for me. And there's a point where like Jenny is in with Ron and trying her best to calm him down. And Sam is clearly such a trigger for Ron at this point that like they can't even be in the same room. It's really a mess. And when she comes in, like Jenny is with every fiber of her being like begging Sam to just walk away. And the way that she looks, it looks like she's aged 10 years in just this one night. Like she all of a sudden looks like she's been through it. And I mean, luckily Sam just like does leave the room and things like chill out for a little. People, I think they like, what time is this even? Because are people sobering up at this point? Everyone's kind of debriefing. I don't know.
If I had to guess, I'd say like 6 a.m. Like it's probably starting to approach the next day fully. There's, a lot of times when people talk about reality shows, they say, is it fake? Is it real? And I always say, I think reality shows are semi-real. There's real moments and not real moments.
Sure.
Like some moments are produced, some are very real. And this feels like one of those moments where this is absolute truth, especially when you look, I mean, everybody's upset, but I agree that Jenny seems, at least from what we're seeing, the most shaken up. There's this true like fear and desperation, and I mean, she is really shaken up about it. I agree with you. Like her body language, her face, and it was not. She's one of my favorites on the show, so it wasn't. I didn't like to see her that way.
Right, and Paulie goes with Mike to the hospital. He does at some point come home to sleep a little because he gets like the prognosis that Mike's going to be okay, and he has like he has some stuff going on for sure, but he's gonna have to like stay there for a little bit longer. So Paulie goes with Mike, comes home to sleep. Everybody's kind of waiting for Mike to get home, and there's a quick moment where Vinny and Ron kind of talk, especially because I think Ron is starting to sober up, and he kind of is starting to go on a small apology tour. And Vinny kind of says like, I just don't like when you get like that when you drink, like it gets scary. And he says these words that I feel like it fully takes Ron another like decade or two for it to really sink in. Like this was it's aired in 2011. I think they filmed early 2011. And so this is over 10 years from now. And it took him that long to really get his drinking to a place that is, well, he's not drinking actually. To a place where he's not.
Okay. Well, it took a long time, but I actually didn't know he was not drinking. So, like, to this day, he's not, because that's good to hear.
As far from what I've seen on Family Reunion, because the whole like Ron's back, he's back after a 2-year hiatus where he was in rehab and he's doing the programs and stuff. I think that's why they were so, and I still don't agree with him coming back, but that's why they gave him a chance, because he's doing what he's supposed to be doing and he's been sober. And he's also like, he's not like a main character. Like he kind of comes in, he's not like on as much. He's not there the whole time on these vacations. So like they're making it work. I'm gonna stay on record that I'm not thrilled. I think that they should just have him be off the show. But he is not drinking. He is in programs, and they even do go to a club and he doesn't drink. He kind of like does what Mike does when Mike goes out. And like Mike's wife's pregnant. So like there's a bunch of people not drinking when this is happening. So it's maintainable. So that's right now though. I just don't, it doesn't like feel I guess I'm like, I'll believe it when it is true longer, how that goes.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, after over a decade of proving who you are, it's going to take probably a comparable amount of time to prove that you're not that person anymore.
Right.
So I agree. But yeah, in this moment, Vinny's very much, it's very like a real heart to heart. And Ronnie kind of is talking about maybe leaving, and Vinny convinces him to stay. I don't think that part of it wasn't wise. I think he probably should have gone home. If not just because of his violence, just even if it was for him, that probably would have been the best thing for him. But also for the Sam and the rest of the house, I think he probably should have left.
I think part of the problem is like if they were down the shore, I think he could have gone home for the weekend and like dried out, chilled out, whatever. But they're fully in Italy, so like I maybe think he should have had like a break where he went somewhere else, wasn't filming for a little, got things together, and then came back. But you're right. I think what he could have used was a break for sure.
Yeah, it didn't take a lot of convincing, though. I don't think he really wanted to leave. I think he might have been putting on a tiny bit of a show because Vinny is like, "Man, don't leave," and he's like, "Okay."
Right. Yeah. Well, so he and Sam have this moment, and this is like, I didn't remember it being in this context, but this is one of their more iconic fights. Like, not, I mean, because it is like weirdly, it just doesn't feel as heavy as everything else that's going on. And so Ron goes to Sam to like kind of apologize and be like, okay, I'm sorry. And Sam's like, it's fine, but what you said is true. Like you called girls. Like you didn't lie when you said that. That's true. And he was like, you're right, I did. And she is like mad all over again, but she's mad in her quiet Sam way. So she's not yelling or standing up or doing anything. She's just like, who was it? What's her name? Who is it? And when he says just some girl from that I know from, and she goes, Long Island, and Ron like does something to signify yes, from Long Island. And in this 2 seconds, Sammy exuberates the biggest message with her body language. There were no words needed, and it is incredible. She says Long Island, and then she nods. She kind of squints her eyes, and she's moving in a way that lets you know she's processing it. She's disgusted with him. She can't even look at him. She can't even believe what she's hearing. And then she just holds up her hand and says, goodbye.
Goodbye. Yeah, exactly.
It's a work of art.
That's an iconic gif. I used to see it on Tumblr all the time.
Goodbye.
It's hard not to think it's a little bit funny, even though there's a darkness to it. But then she gets up and she's like, it's fine. It's just, I never want to see you ever again for the rest of my life, but goodbye.
No, but that's also iconic. It's fine. I just never want to talk to you again for the rest of my life. Okay. Ouch.
It's hard not to laugh because it's so fucked up, but there is an unintentional humor to Sam. She's accidentally funny, especially in these moments. So
I feel for her. I also live for her. as much as I don't think she should be going through any of this, I am happy that we got Long Island. Goodbye. She is iconic. She is iconic. She can't even help it. I just wish that they treated her better because these kinds of mind games that Ron's playing is like literal abuse. But
yeah,
I love her. So justice for Sammy.
Well, so not long after that, I guess it's morning, so it is the next day, but nobody's really slept. And Mike does return home from the hospital.
Before Mike gets home, can I just say, truly no idea what time it is because among all of this chaos, Snooki and Jenny have flowers being delivered to the house.
Yeah.
And so there's a florist on the phone with Vinny. And Vinny must just be like, dude, I've got a roommate in the hospital. I've got others who are like screaming and fighting. And you want me to tell you where you can leave these two girls their fucking flowers? Is this a joke? And it is very like random and off color, but that's where I'm like, what time is it that a florist is calling you when it's like still perceivably the end of a night out? So it must be like 7 or 8 a.m. at this point.
Well, and I think it might even be later in the morning because Mike shows up not long after, and Polly had said something about him having to be in the hospital for like a total of 8 hours. So we might be approaching noon at this point. Like the sun is fully in the sky.
That's true. And Ron kind of attempts to put Mike's room back together before Mike gets home. And when Mike does get home, he announces that he was diagnosed with a concussion and a mild neck sprain. He comes home without the brace, but then he's told he has to wear the brace for a whole week. So then he starts wearing the brace from there on in. And so I'm kind of like, well, why weren't you wearing it when you said that though?
Right. I almost was like, did he need to wear it? Or I don't know. Who knows? But you're right.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, Ron decides he needs to spend the day alone to kind of like think and process things, which, like you said, I think you could have spent more than just the day doing that.
And not on camera, preferably. I really think you should have gone to a hotel, probably.
Yeah, I think that's where production should have pulled him and Mike into separate rooms and said, y'all need to literally chill out. This isn't a violence kind of show. I don't know. And maybe like they're trying to make it be like authentic Italian culture, and like sometimes Italians are violent, but also why would we want that to be like the idolized TV shown version? It's just unnecessary. But yeah, I think you could have had more time alone. Everyone else goes to do laundry and he ends up meeting up with them. So like he really didn't even spend that much time alone. Like it feels like he went to the gym by himself and then everyone met up with him for lunch. Like that doesn't even feel like the whole day to me. It feels like he spent 2 hours maximum alone.
Right. So when they're all at lunch and they kind of meet up with Ron, it all turns to them shit talking Sam. And it's just like, I just will never understand the relationship the roommates have with Ron. Because how after all that are you going to sit and talk to him and say like, oh, it's Sam's an instigator and it's her fault? They weren't saying it that like blatantly, but that's what they were getting at. And it's crazy to me.
They're very anti-Sam and Ron in a way that feels like they're anti-Sam.
It is. And listen, I understand, I guess, being closer to one side and feeling like you sort of have to pick a side a little bit, but I just don't understand why it's Ron. I've never understood that. There's in the past seasons too, there's this like, I'm so close to Ron, I don't want, why? Is there stuff happening off camera that, because what they show of Ron, it's almost all negative. And so maybe he's actually a good friend off camera and it's not being edited in because everybody seems to be Team Ron and I just don't get it.
No, I fully don't get it. Especially as such a Sammy stan, I don't understand either. He does kind of apologize to everybody and they're just kind of like, you and Sam aren't good for each other, which is true. I feel like they are pretty toxic, but yikes, just like not a great way to be handled for sure.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I agree that they're both very toxic for each other. It's just hard not to focus on Ron because he takes it to a physical level. The violence makes it hard not to focus mostly on him.
Here's the thing. they've gone on to date other people, right? Sammy has gone on to have some pretty healthy relationships, including the current one that she's in, whereas Ron went on to have more toxic relationships. So that should tell you everything you need to know right now. And Sammy didn't have to go to rehab for hitting or abusing anybody, and Ron did. So,
and this may be too heavy of a conversation to have on a TV recap podcast, but I've seen online this discussion, which I find interesting, about the concept of reactive abuse, because sometimes there's these relationships where you can look at it and say, from the outside looking in, both parties are toxic to each other and both parties are in some ways abusive to each other. But it's not always that they're both naturally like that. Sometimes one
right.
person comes into the relationship and is, manipulative and gaslighting and all those other things, and it kind of brings out the worst in that other person. And so there are times
Yeah.
when Sammy is in the wrong where I'm like, but is this her nature, or was she kind of backed into a corner? And I don't know, maybe I'm just an apologist, but that's why it's hard to critique her even when she is sort of in the wrong, which I'm not saying she is in this episode, I just mean in general.
No, fully. So I think that it's like the toxic person in the relationship, I think, skews both people and everybody involves like level of reality. And what I mean by that is like what's considered normal, what's considered not normal, because we're watching this and nothing about it seems normal to us, right?
Right.
But like when you're in toxic relationships, you don't even realize that it's not normal because they've made you believe that this is how things are and this is what love is, and there's passion and all this different stuff, and there's tons of different levels to it. Because I had this one friend who was it wasn't an abusive relationship or a violent relationship, but she had a boyfriend who was really possessive. Like they had the tightest leashes on each other I have ever seen. And when she was then got out of that relationship and started dating someone else, she kind of wanted to keep that guy on a tighter rope than she should have, because what she learned to be normal was from this overly possessive person. And so they had like gotten in this fight over like location being shared and like someone not telling her where she was. And she like said something to me like, I can't, like, what if something had happened and I didn't even know that you left the house? And I had to tell her, like, listen, girl, it is not normal for your partner to have to tell you where they are at every single second of every single day. You don't owe that to him, and he certainly doesn't owe it to you, especially if he's just going to the store. Like it's not like he's going somewhere and hiding it from you. Like he just ran out to get some like eggs and milk, and like that's okay. Like so her level of like perception was so off that she was like, no, I should know. You should text me before you go to the store. And I'm like, no, he doesn't have to do that. He can go to the fucking store. That's toxic, and you learned that from a toxic person. So I feel like that I forget what we said, like reactive toxicity or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I feel like is a
I
real
saw it
thing.
called
You learn
reactive
it from the other
abuse.
person. Yeah,
Right.
completely. I agree.
No, totally. I think there's like this almost dark cloud that follows you out of that relationship that you can bring into the next. And that's why I think there is something to be said about taking some time for yourself after getting out of a bad relationship. It could be hard. I think our instinct is to distract ourselves. And if you're like a serial dater, of course, it's natural that your instinct is going to be, I feel lonely, therefore I'll fill up that hole with somebody else's attention.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to sit in your loneliness and your heartbreak to heal, and then you go in your next relationship. That's what I've been doing, and I'm at like 6 years.
When I got out of a toxic relationship, I absolutely needed some time to just breathe, because it was a lot of energy that then all like, and it wasn't all great energy. Like it was a lot of bad energy that had just all left my life like very quickly. And it took a second to just like get your bearings again. And I think if I had rushed into another relationship, I don't think it would have gone well. Like I really think I needed that time to take a breath. And yeah, you gotta like take care of yourself in that way.
Well, it's also not super fair to the person who you could consider a rebound person. And let me ask you this. Have you ever been a rebound? Because I have. It's not good.
Yeah, and it doesn't always work out unless that person really is over the other person. But like when you say
Mhm.
rebound, it kind of it implies that things are fresh still, and it gets messy, especially with fucking lesbians, dude. Oh my God, like
Yeah.
I
Well,
had to listen on this one date to this girl literally like tell me all these reasons why she loved this other girl and was still not over her, and I was like, then why are we on this date? Literally, why are we on this date?
I've been on dates where they're complaining about their ex too, and I'm like, am I just like a vessel for you to just have company? Like, do you have
Yes,
any interest in knowing me at all, or am I just
no,
a body? Am I a human person?
yes, that's
Can I
what it
ask
is.
you?
That's exactly what it is. All right, well,
Um,
we really did get off on a tangent there. We
we
should probably
sure
take
did.
a break.
Well, let's get
Let's-
back into it after we take a break.
Yeah, take a breather here. Welcome to Sapphic Survival Guide.
My name is Cheyenne.
I'm Gina.
Class is now in session.
How do you define queer style?
How do you communicate that you don't want to U-Haul at all?
Right, as literally every queer woman I meet hate Geminis.
How do I deal with the most devastating breakup I've ever been through? Sapphic Survival Guide.
We're happy to be queer to answer your questions.
Hello.
Hello.
We are back.
We are back, and this might take us on a little tangent again here, but the next thing to talk about is that Gianni gives Nicole a call, and she kind of gets a little raunchy on the phone, and he like gets mad at her because he's apparently some like what's the word I'm looking for? I don't
Prude?
know, some like yeah, I guess some like prude when it comes to
Conservative?
like, yeah, it's just it's weird to be dating Snooki of all people, who's very
Hello.
sex positive, very open and out about sex, and he's like very quiet and I don't know, weird, like uppity about it. But
Yeah, well-
so I wanted you say what you gotta say first.
I was gonna say
We'll
I
do
just
that.
can't help but feel like he doesn't like her that much.
It's weird. I don't get their dynamic at this point. And I want to talk about something that's happening like in real life, because there were some rumors
Mm.
and I almost feel like with Snooki, she kind of with Nicole, I should say. I almost feel like with Nicole, she really gets to choose what narrative is put out there. And so I was kind of surprised when I saw there was a rumor that Gianni and her are actually living separately, and they're having some issues because his email was found on the Ashley Madison hack.
Oh shit.
Which, if you're not familiar with the Ashley Madison hack, Ashley Madison is a website for people who are married and want to have an affair. And so everyone on this site is having an affair. There's so many very interesting documentaries about this company because they went through a lot of hot water because they had like fake people on the website. It was just, there's just like a lot. And then obviously like high profile people, yada, yada, yada. So if the hack, people now, and it's still active. So like if you have a husband, find his email, go Google Ashley Madison hack website, and there's a place where you can put in anyone's email, and if they have been registered on Ashley Madison, it will tell you. And this hack is still active even though Ashley Madison is still active. So I don't know if maybe somebody like tried his email and that's where this came from, or if there's rumors because she had been spending time at one house that they own and he was spending time at another. I also, in trying to Google and find this information, I saw that Nicole had said in an interview from years ago that they would never get a divorce because they don't have a prenup. I don't know how
shit.
true any of that is, but that is what I somehow found in some of the search. However, she did recently, so to speak, dispel the rumors by posting a picture of her full family like at Disney World or Disney something. And so supposedly they're okay and there's not any issues, but it does I feel like I was just saying like, oh, I like watching Gianni and Snooki because I know that they end up together and everything's great. But it almost makes me feel like I wish I knew what was really happening there, because I think if he was cheating or if something did happen, I don't think Nicole wants it to get out.
Right.
And
No,
I think that because she
yeah.
wants like that family life so bad, I think she would stay in a marriage that she's not happy in for her kids and for her lifestyle. And that prenup thing really is quite the tea.
No, it's a double whammy because you're right. She is very much a family person, and it seems to her she's a bit traditional in that way. And that like once you make the commitment, you don't break it off, like you make it work. So she seems like she already wouldn't want a divorce anyway. But then you
Yeah.
factor in that all of their wealth is her wealth. She is a television star. I don't even know what he
Mhm.
does for a living. That's all hers. And so if he got half of that, I would be a little scared if I were her too. I wouldn't want to let that happen.
It's nerve-wracking. It just like makes me sad. I hope that things are going well. I hope that they really are just like happy in Disney World. Like I hope that's the truth.
I know, and it is one of those things where it is technically none of our business, but because they're so public, you can't help but feel like, well, you can't give me half the information. Like, tell me what's going
Yeah.
on. So, yeah, geez. Well, oh God, when it starts back to the episode we're recapping, it kind of started off that way. It was never really, they were never really like a couple you root for from the beginning. Even when they're doing well, it's like you never really are like, oh, I love them. Because
They're a
there
little
is
bit of
this,
an odd couple. Yeah.
they sort of remind me of another famous couple that I can compare it to is and obviously they're in a different caliber, but um Liam Hemsworth and Miley Cyrus, in that it almost feels like these guys, they want like to get the wild, crazy, super famous girl and turn her into just a regular boring housewife. I shouldn't say
Right.
boring, that's not the right, but it feels like
But
there's
tone
like
her
this
down. Yeah.
tone her down. It's like I want to save her from this life and make her like normal and conservative. And when it's not successful, they get really upset and they lash out. Um, and even from the very beginning, he's like yelling at her just for being Snooki. I mean, like it's you're dating Snooki. She's
Yeah.
like a cartoonishly. She's famous for being cartoonishly sexy and sexual and a party animal. It baffles me that he would even spend any time with her if he feels this way about her. I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't get it either, but
Whatever.
we'll move
It goes,
on
it comes and goes
here.
pretty quickly. We spent a lot of time
Yeah.
talking about it, but it was a quick moment in the episode.
Yeah, Gianni's not really, I mean, he's gonna be coming later on. They've talked about that, but there's a lot more drama happening with Sam, Ron, Mike, and so back to that side of the house. Sam is
Jeez.
apologizing to Mike, who kind of doesn't really accept it, and then he throws himself this pity party. And what I think happened, because if you like look when he wakes up, there's food next to him, there's like blankets on him, and everyone else isn't home. So I think that they were like, oh, we'll put some food out for Mike and we'll make sure he's good. And then we'll go run our errands and we'll see him when we get back. And he wakes up and he's like, wow, no one is really checking on me and no one cares. But I'm like, I just don't think they're home in this exact moment. But this is where we get that meme where he has the neck brace, he has the sunglasses, and he's like wiping off the fakest tear in the world.
It is very much a fake like pity party cry, and I feel bad for laughing, but it is such an iconic and like hilarious in a dark way. He's a bit of a
Yeah.
drama queen, I won't lie.
Speaking of like hilarious in a dark way, at some point, because the timing on the rest of this episode's a little weird, but at some point, Ron and Mike sort of are in the room together and are kind of like talking it out in a weird, I don't know, like they almost don't want to acknowledge it. They want to be past it. And Mike admits to him, like, oh, this is why I pulled this move. It's worked for me before. Like we've talked about, I've done this in a previous fight. And they're kind of laughing at it. And they're kind of like, they're finding some humor in it, even though I don't really think it's that funny. And even the girls are kind of like, they're in there laughing. Like, what is going on? I feel like I wonder how much like what's going on with drugs at this point, and if Mike like got his drugs again, so he's all happy. It felt very off color.
Yeah, it was random, and it's one of those things where you're like, I don't trust it. I think you're actually
Yeah.
still mad at each other. Well, even Mike even says in confessional, we're kind of calmed down now, but this isn't over, and I do expect a round two. And he says that, and then it cuts to them laughing. So it is a bit eerie. It's like, I kind of agree. I think there is a round two that's probably going to come, and I guess we'll just wait for it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. There's another like quick dramatic moment where Sam like piles up all the gifts Ron gave her and put them on his bed, and then he puts them one at a time in the trash. Then she fishes them out of the trash one at a time, and it's it's just like a lot. And I just want to be like, leave each other the fuck alone, walk
Yeah.
away.
They need to
I
be
don't know.
anywhere but next to each other for sure.
Luckily, they split up. The girls go some way and the boys go the other way, which is needed.
Right.
The girls go to get a little bite to eat, and I think that they needed to go. They could not be
Yeah.
together tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah. And again, the conversation just feels a little bit not, I guess, not what I would say to Sam myself, but there is this attitude of like, well, maybe if you just did this differently, it wouldn't escalate so much. And it's like, okay, sure, whatever, I guess. And her response is like, yeah, I wish I was better. It's like, I don't like to see that. I don't know.
No,
Maybe I'm
it's
too much of an
gross.
apologist, but it's yeah, I don't like it. And on that same, I also kind of get what the girls are. They're doing everything in their power to avoid more fights. I guess maybe that's what they're doing. They're like, we'll talk to whoever about whatever to just make this stop. So I don't even know that it was like a blame game thing. I think it was more just let's all take responsibility, I guess. But it just is always weird to see it that way, to see it framed that way.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's also kind of so because of Mike's neck brace and all the things that happened, he's not allowed to go out for a week, and they make it seem like that's like the worst thing ever. Like he can't go out for a whole week. Like the girls are talking about it, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know that," and I'm like, "You don't have to tell me to not go out for a week. I'll not go out for longer than a week without anyone having to tell me not to go out and party and drink." Like it's just so skewed
that
their
is-
mindset.
I know. Well, I guess that is what they were there for, I guess. But I know,
Because there's
right? Like,
nothing else they can do in Italy.
right. No, there you go. That's true. It's like a beautiful city with historical world wonders and landmarks. Yeah, you're right. There's plenty to do.
I
But
don't know. Well, the
Mike
boys
needed the
have
break.
to go to a club, of course, even though, yeah, Mike needed this break. And this almost makes me wonder, okay, were they just in such a weird pressure cooker that everyone's kind of acting out of character? Because Paulie, of all people, gets into kind of an altercation at the club. And I'm like, Paulie, I mean, nothing really comes of it, but it still feels like, is everyone losing their mind?
I think that is what it is. I think there's so much pressure built up and so much tension that everybody is on like thin ice or whatever. Yeah, and everybody's snapping at each other. What is the guy even saying? So he said this guy. So okay, Polly's dancing with some girl as usual, and some guy randomly comes up and is saying, I think it was Shekosa, which
Yeah, which
I've
doesn't really mean anything when I Googled it. It means like what thing or that thing.
So what my interpretation is, I bet it was kind of the vibe of like, "What's up? What's up?" You know how guys will say that. Like,
Okay,
I
okay.
think I'm assuming because Google Translate said it meant what. So it's like, well, maybe the translation is like yeah, like what's up? What do you want to do? That kind of thing. Maybe I don't know. But
So
Paulie didn't even
weird.
know what he was saying. He just knew that he didn't like his vibe.
Yeah, but he kind of goes at him and like escalates the situation a bit by like yelling in his face. And like I said, nothing comes of it, but it's just off character for Polly.
Yeah, I think it's just attention and it's palpable at that point.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
very quick moment while the boys are out where Mike and Nicole talk and agree to like not go at each other's throats and like put it behind them and relax. But if I'm remembering correctly, this is not the end of them getting in a fight. So
It's certainly not. It's the end for a short time. Their conversation has this attitude of like Nicole is coming from a perspective of I'm still not completely happy with you. I'm still upset with you, but at the end of the day, I love you, and
yeah.
I want us to be okay, even if I do still have weird feelings towards you. And Mike being Mike, he kind of doubles down though in the confessional where he's like, I still don't think she and Gianni are right for each other. And he's not wrong, but
But
kind of not
he's
his
not
place.
right for Nicole either. So like
Right.
relax, dude.
Yeah.
So it's very weird. I think he thinks he's gonna win in the end, but I don't really get it. I don't know. So back at the club, Ron does meet a girl, but it's kind of clear that like his heart is set on Sam. And I almost feel like even earlier in the episode when the roomies were being like giving him a hard time at the lunch where they were like, you shouldn't be with Sam, he's almost like defending her there, where he's like, well, I know, but like I do love her. And so like here he's at the club and this girl's like, come on, let's go. And he's like, I don't want to be finding grenades and random girls at the club. Like, I really want Sam. But so because he's having these emotional moments, he decides to go get her flowers and bring them home, which just confuses her. And I don't think she handled it wonderfully, but I also get why she's very confused.
Well, she was expecting him to bring a girl home. Like she had her mind set on he's gonna bring a girl home. And so when he came in with flowers and then gave them to her, her instinct is to go, did you bring a girl though? Were these for her? And he's like,
Right.
no, they're for you. Yeah, she was very confused by it. Well, because understandably so, she did not expect that little like attempt at a romantic gesture after everything. So it, I guess, threw her off.
Yeah, I definitely don't understand. Like, I feel like Ron maybe should have been more clear about his intentions because he does kind of give her the flowers and is like, but I'm an asshole. I'm just so we're clear, I'm the asshole. And I don't know if he's saying it like sarcastically or to be like, look, I'm not the asshole because I got you these flowers one time. I don't know. I don't understand. I understand why she's confused because I don't understand. It feels like toxic chaos. Like, I'm
Mhm.
gonna go out and I am gonna flirt with another girl at a club, and I have been calling other girls, but now I'm gonna bring you flowers and I'm gonna get mad when you question what I've been doing with other girls.
Mhm. And then he says in the confessional, like, oh, I gave her these flowers so that she knows I'm ready to move on. What does that mean? Flowers are not a symbol of
Right.
let's move on. That's a symbol of
No,
let's make up. So
they are
it's mixed
not a symbol
messages.
of moving on.
No.
Mixed messages, and then he ends up throwing them in the trash, which Sam spent half this episode pulling things out of this trash can. Like it
Is
is,
that his new signature move?
I guess it's just like them in this one fucking trash can. It's so weird. And the night kind of ends there, just like awkwardly that they're sleeping separate. We don't know if they're together or not. We don't really know if the flowers did more damage or more heal. Like it's all weird. And I feel like they're all just drinking so much that they're never actually getting like fully sober. At least I don't think the
Right.
boys are. And I really think they all need to just relax for several days and not drink and just like go sightseeing, see some museums, visit the churches, breathe, stop consuming copious amounts of alcohol for just like 3 days, you guys.
Well, and I could see why it would be hard though, because not to defend that behavior, but you get caught in the loop of it's a combination of they don't want to deal with all the drama that's happening, but at this also, in addition to that, when you've drinking that much, you know that if you stop, it's going to be brutal. So it's almost like, well, if I just never stop, I never have to deal with getting sick, I guess. So they're caught in that
That sounds
loop,
like
and
horrible and exhausting.
I think that about them a lot. There's been times when like, I don't know if it was this season or later seasons, but I recall Dina and Nicole having 24-hour binges
Yeah.
where they drink for 24 hours nonstop. What?
My body can't handle that. That's for sure.
Yesterday I had two vodka Red Bulls, and I felt sick and went to bed at like 9:30.
No, same. I went out with my girlfriend last night. I had a couple drinks, and at the end of the night, I was wasted. And I had like 3 drinks in the span of 4 hours. And I had to like keep myself awake and eat some saltines because I was getting the spins when I was going to lay down. And that's the amount of alcohol that they would like pregame the night
Right.
with. And
That's
that was my
breakfast.
whole night. Right. And that was my whole night. And I was like, my body was going through it at the end of the night. I was like, oh, I'm dizzy. I'm so drunk. And that's to them, that's just getting started. Craziness.
That's why I think a little bit of
I
a little nose
wonder
candy
the drug usage.
had
Yeah.
to be something. Yeah. Well, I guess we shouldn't speculate too much, but It's wild.
Yeah, I don't know. So I will say for our cookie quote, this was a very heavy and dark episode. It was very hard to find a cookie quote. And I almost just said, I don't think we're going to do one this episode because I couldn't find anything funny. But then there was literally a 10-second moment that made me laugh when the girls were coming home from their little eating, drinking, dinner thing. And it's super quick. But you got to find the light moments where you can in episodes like this. So do you want to be Jenny or Dina?
I'll do Jenny if
Yeah.
you
All
want
right.
to do Dina. Okay. Who wants to get naked and get spray tanned?
Actually, I've been naked this entire fucking trip. End scene. That's it. It makes no sense. It's so out of context, but it's so funny. And I was like, okay, it made me laugh. So we're doing it.
There you go. Well, that was the one the one light moment of the episode. Jesus.
I know, crazy. Well, there's still a lot more of Italy to dig into. So make sure you're following us. And you should give us a rate while you're there because we're funny people.
Please,
And come back for the next episode.
Yes. All right. Well, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hello.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. If you want more of the podcast, you can follow us on any social media at Hello Pod.
We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/hello. We've got a video feed there so you can see our beautiful faces while we recap Jersey Shore. And we've also got a little bit of behind the scenes bonus content for you.
And you can find me anywhere online at The Libregina, including my website, thelibregina.com.
And you can find me online on TikTok and Instagram at angel.iconic.music.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.